welcome. And I am here with the one and only Dad. Very excited to hear about what your top 3 keys to success are. And if you had to start all over, what would those 3 things be? So we'll start obviously with number 1, and then we'll wrap that up, and then we'll do another video on your second one, and another video on your third one. So I hope you are as excited as I am, because I don't know what they are. I'm sure you've instilled them in me some way, some form,
Yes.
in my life. But yeah, so I'm going to kind of turn it over to you. And those of you watching this, the whole goal is you can take whatever my dad talks about and put it into action and have a positive impact in your life. So here we go.
All right. Well, one of the things that, from the experience I've had as being a parent, a father, a married man, a worker, and all those kind of things is and then the euphemisms that we've had is like dadisms that I get to do with the kids now. But my top 3 things are these. My number 1 is first my relationship with Jesus Christ. My second one is my relationship with my family. And my third one is my relationship with everybody else. And those are the top 3 things.
Okay.
And each one of those has a plumb line.
Okay.
But the plumb line is the same.
How so?
How so? Well, I believe godly characters, those things like that. And could I share?
No, you're not allowed.
I'm not allowed to share?
Yes. This is. I'm just here to listen.
Okay, you
We're
give me
here
a hard
to
time.
listen.
All right, well, hey.
So, by
I'm
total
gonna-
coincidence. All right.
Just coincidence. Well, there's more to it than this, and I need to put my
Okay.
glasses on.
I did not know you had all these props and tools and things.
I did some show prep.
All right, get your popcorn, sit back,
All
relax.
right.
It's the Dad Show.
And I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to preach, but you'll catch these words in many books that you've read and I've read.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've read over 100 books.
Mm-hmm. Listened. I can't read.
Well,
Good.
okay.
I can't read well.
Yes.
I think of well, not yeah.
I'm right there. I'm right there with them. It's called Audible.
Audible.
That's
Get
been
Audible.
a blessing.
Bonus Dad tip: get Audible.
Get Audible. I have read 55 books since 2017.
So,
55.
That's awesome.
And so that aspect of my life, because I mean, it's not an Audible thing because you can listen to other things that are Audible through an app on a phone or whatever. But the key thing is my comprehension's way up, and that's been a blessing for me.
Yeah.
That I've become knowledge, but it's not just head knowledge; it's heart knowledge. So it's.
Can you say that
ingrained in-
again?
It's not just head knowledge; it's heart knowledge.
Okay.
Has experience behind it.
I know you got your thing they're gonna do, but can you kind of dive a little deeper, like heart knowledge, like what is? Because I feel like
Heart knowledge.
I've never, we've never talked about James. When you grow up, it's all about heart knowledge. We're not just head knowledge. So like this is the first time we're talking about it, but I think that this is like something that you've showed by your actions and how you deal with people. But like, how would you explain? Making sure you have that heart knowledge. How do you get heart knowledge? Like, what is it?
Well, let's talk about head knowledge first. Head knowledge is
all right.
knowledge. You read a book, sit in a class, watch a podcast. Use technical terms like that today. Back when I was his age, there was no such thing as a podcast.
We had the radio.
We had the radio,
Yeah.
talk radio. But anyways, head knowledge is when you're getting information. You read it in a book, and it's in your head.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is it's just knowledge, and you could present yourself just having knowledge, but really not have any background to back it up, to talk about your experience with that knowledge.
Okay.
Where heart knowledge is something you read and experienced.
Okay.
And so you have time to reflect on it, that it becomes maybe your passion in what you do in life, or maybe it becomes, it's your experience. It's not brought over as just information from your mind. You present it because it's connected to It's connected to you.
Okay.
You know, let's I don't want to go off on another tangent, but that's
Tangent
part
away.
of it, is experiencing death.
Okay.
I experienced at age 18 when I lost my father. So because of that, as hard as that was, it is the hardest thing at this point in my life. And I'll get to the other one, the second hardest, because I get to be transparent.
That's
That's part
good.
of those three things we just talked about. That was the hardest thing, but it allowed me to, when somebody has to experience that, I feel that. So in my life, I have a tendency to go to more funerals or calling hours
You
than
do.
most people.
You don't miss
I don't miss
any
very
of that.
No. It's because if I know them, I'm going to go support them. Whether it's just by praying for them, being there, and just showing up. Showing up. You've heard that in leadership training. Show up. And that means a lot to those people. Sometimes it's not even the words. They just see you're there. And
Yeah.
it impacts them in a positive way during a time of their grief.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about heart experience. Now that one I didn't read in a book,
Yeah.
but I still got to experience it.
How did you get through that? Obviously, I think, when it comes up, obviously, I never knew Grandpa, but like I always think of like what would happen if you were gone when I was 18, and I don't think I would have been. I don't think I would have been prepared. I guess you're never prepared, but I don't think I've been able to handle it the way you did. So like, how did you?
I think you would have done better.
Okay.
The little things, and you're never prepared for that. You can think about it and talk about it, but you're never really prepared when it does happen, even if you know. Like when my mom was in the hospital for 38 days. I knew her days were coming, but you're never really prepared. You just like, take one more breath, Mom, come on.
Yeah.
That's where I was at. But when you're looking at preparation I didn't duplicate my father's actions when I was young. I duplicated my father's actions as best I could do at the time, which I think I'm improving now for you guys and my grandchildren, because that's heart knowledge and experience.
Yeah.
Is training you to do the right things. I am blessed beyond measure for you and your brothers. I'm blessed. I don't worry. There's times I don't always agree with what you guys have chosen to do. That's a dad. That's the dad side. However, when you look at life, I could be no more prouder, And that's not a pride thing. I'm proud of what you've turned out to be, And believe it or not, God's going to continue to refine you whether I'm here or not. Sometimes it's with a little bit of this here called fire, and some of it's just with a little bit called love. But that's one of the things, now that I talked about love, is I love you, but you knew that when you were a little kid.
Right.
Because I told you.
Yeah.
I didn't experience that. Not even from my mother, till much later in my life. So she was in her 60s, I think. It was the first time I heard my mom tell me she loves me. That's old school. That's just where they were at.
Yeah.
And you experienced something different. And so I'm confident by that, because love's a foundational thing, because it's important when I talk about the vertical, the Father in heaven, it's unconditional. Parental love is unconditional. Even if you did wrong, I would still love you.
I think
Does that make sense?
No, and I always, I always felt like no matter how bad I screwed up, We don't have to go into details on how bad I screwed up on certain.
Okay.
There's definitely a few moments where it just kind of.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, you remember
You
that
know
too?
that one,
Yeah. We're both thinking about the same one. Without getting too much into it, I screwed up really bad, and you drove through the night to make sure I was okay and take care of me and my friends, and it was like I never felt like I screwed up like nothing was permanent. Like it was, hey, you screwed up, you're gonna get through this, don't do it again, and I love you. So like I think that I think, and thank you for that, because it's part of with JJ and Julia before I put them to bed. I try to, like, every time, like, we read our book and it's time to, like, close our eyes, go to sleep. So I say, it's like, you're brave and tough and you believe in yourself. And at the same time, we are kind and gentle, and you're a super schleicher because you never give up and you always use your manners. And this started with, like, one thing and it's kind of built, but then I'll go into, and you're the calm before, during, and after the storm. And where I'm going with the unconditional love part is I always say, and no matter what you do, no matter what you say, I love you, no matter what. And thank you for that, because you taught me, like, what sparked it was losing my mind with some stuff that, like, trying to, help Julia go through her sleep regression phase. And I'm like, listening to every parent podcast or watch every parent YouTube video I can get. But that was like one thing that one of the guys said. It was just like, always make sure they know that you love them. No matter what, like, just, there's no question. So, like, again, it's talk about, like, what's been put into words and what's been shown. And I think that, I know that it's possible. I know that I'm not just saying words. I know that JJ and Julie they're going to be okay when they screw up. I won't be happy. I won't say the right things. I won't act the right way all the time, but they'll know that, I'm there. So thank you for that. Cool. I love that we both thought of the same moment. We're like, yeah, there was the time that Dad was there for James when he screwed up. So, perfect. So what else?
Well, why don't we steer back to this one?
We can steer back.
Character qualities. We're just going to talk these about character qualities.
Roll that down back.
You're talking about that
Henry?
plumb line.
And we got Henry here. We got a celebrity guest. So
yeah, Henry. He wasn't even invited, but he showed up.
He says meow.
So this is a verse out of 2 Peter in chapter 1. It's a few verses, and I'm just going to get the meat of it. But it talks about, I feel, their character qualities. So Peter's writing to the church here, and he says in the beginning of the letter, says, "Grace and peace be multiplied to you in the knowledge of God and of Jesus Christ our Lord, seeing that his divine power has granted to us everything pertaining to life and godliness, through the true knowledge of him who has called us by his own glory and excellence. For by these he has granted us his precious and magnificent promises, in order that by them you might become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption of the world by lust. So now for this very reason, also, applying all diligence, in your faith supply moral excellence. Moral excellence supply knowledge, and in your knowledge, self-control, and in your self-control, perseverance, and in your perseverance, godliness. And in your godliness, something that we hear about, brotherly kindness. Imagine that. We say brotherly kindness all the time, but it's right here in God's Word. That's where it started. And in your brotherly kindness, love. And this is the key part. For if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they render you neither useless nor unfruitful in the true knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. And that's the part.
Can you say that one more time, and I'm going to ask you to kind of explain it.
Okay, that's where I'm going to go. So if these qualities are yours, and they are increasing, they render you neither useless nor unfruitful in the true knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay.
So I believe I'm always in the spiritual realm. You'll hear terms secular and spiritual. There's no such thing in my book.
Okay.
Because I'm always in the Spirit. Am I always perfectly in the Spirit? No, that's not what I'm. That's why I just read these character qualities, because it says when it's increasing, it's because it's a process. You don't become a great public speaker by just showing up and starting out being a speaker. You don't become a great photographer until you start taking pictures. You don't become a great person in the career path you've chosen until you've put in the time, like everything else. And for what I do, you put in the time.
Yeah.
And, it's like people think, how many hours you need to put in for a presentation for 1 hour? It's usually 10 hours or more. Now, it comes easier if you're by history of years of experience, but if you're teaching on something new, even in your job or my job, I got to know what I'm talking about. I may have the background, but if it's something new, I got to read it and dig into it before I can present it. Because I got to have, not showmanship, I have to have passion for what I believe in, or I wouldn't do it. And I have passion for this, so that's what I believe in. But those character qualities, even if you chose not to follow Jesus Christ, which is what I want the whole world to do, but if you follow those character qualities in your life, you're going to have a better life than most people, because you're basically not going to lie, cheat, not going to lie, cheat, or do anything like that. That's going to circle around back. I mean, even in my job, people say, "Well, that's pretty good stuff," or whatever. And say, "Yeah, but if I was blowing smoke, once it dissipates, all you got is what? Nothing." So if I'm blowing smoke, I'm not telling the truth, I'm not walking in integrity, you lose your own value. You've decreased your value. They don't need somebody to walk in that type of a attitude in your job or your life. At the same time, keep in mind, we're not perfect. We're not perfect. The plumb line is a guidance.
So define a plumb line. So like a plumb line, I've heard you say it, but that's not something that I use in my my daily vocabulary. So I don't want to get it wrong as to like what.
Well,
is it a path? Is it
no? It's a gauge.
A gauge.
So a plumb line.
Okay.
Is basically a string with a weight at the end.
Okay.
Okay. So like plumbers use it or builders use it.
Gotcha. Can you tell I don't do to your dismay? I'm not handy. Dad comes over to help fix something. It's you and Erica fixing something, not you and me. So well, you guys are doing great. I'll get you coffee. I'll get you. I'll pick up the food.
Yes, and I've chosen to start working on my own cars again because I like to.
Yes, that sounds horrible to me. Sounds horrible.
But you get to come over and watch me.
Yeah, so the plumb line is a weight. Okay.
No, it's a string with a weight on it.
String with the weight on it.
So it starts. It's attached to something. But what happens is, what's an absolute law here? The law of gravity. So what happens? You tie it to a higher point. It's hanging plumb. Basically, it's going to the center of the earth. So gravity's the weight and the string. So it's hanging plumb, perfectly straight.
Okay, so plumb equals perfectly straight.
So it gives you a vertical.
So you're perfectly straight line.
It gives you a vertical.
Got it. Yeah.
So if you're building something and you want to make sure it's vertical, going like the edge of this brickwork, they probably used a chalk line, but you made the chalk line from a line, a string, and snapped the chalk, so that you have a guidance to go make sure as you're putting the stone up, that you're not off. You're going straight up. And even though the stones are all different shape, you could still put the edge of each stone in the same spot by having that plumb line.
Okay.
But also what a plumb line does is it helps gauge depth.
Okay.
So one of the things I've learned about life right now is you can live life on the surface. Like on the surface, you look at the surface of a pond. It's just, that's where you live your life. You're superficial.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're really, you want to be, you want to live a life of being in the depth of life. You're engaged in it.
Mm-hmm.
And a plumb line is also used to measure depth. So, like in a lot of plants, you have what's called a taproot.
Okay.
So it's important. My characteristics have to be in good soil, that I have a good taproot.
Okay.
Again, I refer back to all those character qualities.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being planted in good soil, that you have the ability for the taproot to grow. Because if you're in rocky ground or shallow, it's shallow, it's full of weeds, you're not going to grow as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got good soil and you're there, your growth's going to be much greater.
So if someone like wanted to start now and basically start to, maybe they have been living we all have been superficial some way,
But
shape, or
that's the
form.
whole part you just
Yeah.
said, when they start now.
Yeah.
They get to.
They get
and
to,
that's
yeah.
the part, because that's the part that a lot of us go through our whole lives and never think about a reset. The scripture talks about repentance. Repentance just means go the other direction. So if you're going this way and it's the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
go the other way. But also, we've heard the term in business training, doing a reset, in the sense of, all right, I erred here, reset my mind so I can allow myself to reload and start again on that project. Say that you're working on a project. That wasn't it, but that's all. Sometimes that's how our job is. We're trying to figure it out. But if you go wrong directions, you can still reset. So it doesn't matter how young, how old we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's what are you going to do? You've heard that term before.
Right.
What are you going to do?
So what would you suggest or recommend to somebody if they want to take that first step towards, like, and again, it's not even so much like we all have good character quality. Like every human has the capability for doing great things and then doing the complete opposite, and just our decision to go one way or the other is kind of how our lives pan out. But like, regardless of like, hey, I've been making all the perfect choices and it's just getting harder, and I'd like to, it's like, it's the right thing is the hardest thing, always.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Because there's no shortcuts.
Yeah, so I guess it's like if someone like, and I know, again, you fall off course. So even if you're one of the quote unquote good guys or gals in the world and you're doing good things, you do come to those crossroads where you've experienced things that cause you to doubt, like, hey, it's not even so much is doing the right things what I should be doing, but more of like, is this ever really going to pay off? Like, it's very easy to kind of see people doing bad things, getting away with it, and kind of getting those, talking about superficial, like getting the materialistic, superficial things of life that maybe we want, whether it's success, money, fame, or, whatever. How would you have them take that first step to like stay the course and because like, and this might, I'm not going to get there now, but like your faith is like unwavering, and it's something to where like I feel like why did my business work out was because I had, like, you and Mom instilled unwavering faith in me, and it was kind of like there's a lot of things that should not have worked out, but they did because I just, amidst all the things going wrong and all the people taking advantage of me being a good person, not always, but I saved the course. So I guess, how do you put that into your words? I circled like 87 times around trying to ask a question. I'm trying to word it the right way, but like, what do you do, Dad? What do we do?
Well, in anything, I think it's exercising the word faith.
Okay.
Because faith is looking at your vision. Okay, your goals, but you're not there yet, but you have the faith that down the road you're going to get to it. Faith, same thing was what the Lord did for my life, is transformed it. And it's a daily thing. It's not, it isn't this. I make a decision to follow him, that's a decision. But the process of getting the gunk out to putting good character into one's life is your whole life. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it takes a long time. But the thing is your goals, your faith, what gets you there is, man, faith is a word that you have to have it. You can't, what's the best way I can do is you can't just make it up, you know, and it's like not giving up. In the struggles of life, which I've had some, which will bring me to the second one while we're doing this, is faith. Going through my second hardest time is when I went through my divorce. That wasn't a fun time. That was a challenge to my character, my life, my family, and hurt. And at the same time, you know, the character qualities I just read to you and stuff like that, I had an attitude for a while. And now I'm back. It's not that and I never lost faith. I never held God accountable for any of that, because there's decisions I made. There's decisions other people have made that influenced what we did and what we didn't do. And so that brings me back to, you know, I just shared that with you, but the thing is that I didn't latch on to, as I do today, as that's mentoring and being able to trust somebody. Like when I lost my dad, people used to say, "You're the man now." I didn't know what the man meant. Be a man, what do you mean? I'm 18 years old, 6 months out of high school. What's being a man? In the sense of, like, my father was my father, the breadwinner. My mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Grandma didn't even have a driver's license.
She didn't even have a driver's license, and I was the only one out of school.
Yeah.
So I had to step up and do a lot of things that I necessarily didn't want to do, but I stepped in and did them. That's what, next man up. But at the same time, that man thing, I had nobody like come up and ask me to give me guidance. And I regret that nobody ever did that. So when I see somebody needing guidance, I use my voice. And there was time that when Mom gets to watch this video, she's going to say, I told you. But she wanted me to work with somebody, and I chose not to. Now, would it have been better? Yes. My problem was my own pride at the time. You know, and that's a big to-do. And then later in life, there's a word called trust. And 20-some years ago, I had somebody, like, you know, nobody's perfect. But when you do something confidential, there's confidentiality, and it's discussed about being confident, it's confidential. Within an hour of that person, me sitting down with that person, he breached my trust. Thinking in the better interest of where I was at the time. And I was at one of my places of employment, and I was gone in 3 months because I made a decision that was breached. And that's one of the things in the 54, 55 books I read. The book says, trust in the Lord. You know, because I don't feel he's ever misguided me or led me astray, but like people do. You know, I trusted him with what I shared, and he breached that, and that made me want to leave. And that's one of the things in life whoever's watching this tape, they're going to probably have already, I say tape, I just dated myself.
Yeah.
But the thing is to get to the point is, many people leave their marriage, their job, many things, sports activity they're doing, because of a breach of trust. More than we know.
Yeah.
Because trust is in a marriage can be many things. Handling the finances, integrity in relationship, those kind of things that you expect, but doesn't always happen. And communications, I was always the quiet one.
Okay.
I'm not quiet anymore. I pick and choose where I speak, but I'm not quiet anymore. So that's, and that I thank you for that, because we did that training a few years ago, and it's transformed me in a different
Awesome.
aspect of it. Do I still have my old habits? Yes. Do I like them? No.
Yeah.
But those are habits that have my life of 60 years plus, that they're not necessarily bad, but I can make a big improvement on them. And those are not character qualities. I mean, we're always going to be improving on our character qualities. Those are just like having boldness to speak up and not fear. When I was in school, in high school and stuff, in middle school, I was a wallflower. I didn't have a bunch of friends, didn't go to dances, didn't do anything. Didn't even go to prom. How's that for some transparency here?
There you go.
But
It's overrated. It's overrated.
it could be overrated. I went to, after, a few years later, I went to a couple other proms with other young ladies, but neither here nor there. The thing is,
You're the prom king after that.
no, yeah. But it's like getting out, even out on the dance floor. I love dancing.
Yeah.
But
You got moves, man.
40 years ago, that wasn't my forte. 30
Yeah.
years ago, even 30 years ago wasn't my forte.
Yeah.
But it's just...
Henry loves to dance too.
Yeah, Henry. What are you doing, Henry? But, I'm hoping we're staying on point, but the thing is like the things we choose to do in our lives impact. And you were talking, this goes back to when we were talking about doing a reset and stuff and mentoring. I do have men that I hang with now. Some are older than me, some are younger, and we all come different walks of life. I have my 97-year-old buddy who was at D-Day, and I sit and listen to him because he's experienced stuff that none of us have ever experienced. And one of his parents, if I recall correctly, one of his parents died. The other parent abandoned them in the sense of he was even going to sell them. This is back in the 30s, during the Depression.
Yeah.
And his aunt ended up taking care of him. And he would tell me about getting coal off the railroad tracks to heat the house.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one thing. Plus, it was a D-Day.
Yeah.
And I sit and listen to him. And he's a tad older than my dad would have been if my dad was still alive. So I've kind of like plugged into that in the sense of like, just kind of like talking to my dad. I mean, it's not my dad. I still remember my dad. But it's just where I can just sit and talk and listen.
What are some things that, Henry. So, what you got to say, Henry? Say meow meow? Meow meow? So, like, what are some things, is there anything that you're able to share about, like D-Day? What was that like? Is there anything that sticks out? Or
Oh, him sharing about D-Day?
Yeah.
He was in the third wave.
Okay.
Because he was in what referred to today as logistics. He worked for command, and though he was a private, he could tell a general no, because if the general come up and said, I need such and such supplies, and it wasn't on the paperwork, he could tell him no. You can't get it. Go through the process. So, but in being in logistics, he was feeding the troops. Once they landed and started moving inland, Normandy wasn't just a beachhead anymore. It was a harbor of them getting goods.
Gotcha.
Till they got to a point, and then they transferred. They ended up being in Antwerp, Belgium, was his next task.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So I guess too, talking about like mentorships come up quite a bit, and like how like talking to him and even like this conversation, like I'm learning things. Like I like to think that we talk more now than I would say in the last 6 months. We talk more than we've ever talked, and it's cool. It's fun. So anybody, if you're able to, call your dad, talk to your dad.
Yes.
So
and if you're not on the same page with your dad, you both get to work at it.
yeah.
But if you're watching the video, you get to start.
Yeah.
And it's.
We haven't always been on good.
I don't know.
I mean, we've been awful, but definitely it's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
As Rocky would say.
Sunshine and rainbows.
But
that's another good video.
But like so, like mentorship. Like I feel like you've just kind of mentored us naturally. Like every morning, we get a text from Dad, and it's his notes from his, it's his quote of the day, and from his journaling. So it's like you've listened to 55 books, but you're like reading all kinds of books and journaling and all that, and you share it with us. And so I guess going back to like you wish someone would have said something. If you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self and say, hey, you do need a mentor, you do need to reach out, like, is there any times in your life that like you found, like even like your 97-year-old buddy, like how do you recommend people find a mentor or go looking for a mentor or ask for a mentor?
That is a good question, James. At this point, one of the things I've been learning about is in relationship with men, they walk side by side.
Okay.
Like our conversations aren't always this way, face to face, because this is father-son. Women have a tendency to always go get a cup of coffee and they talk face to face about life.
Mm-hmm.
Men do it walking side by side. Just our character qualities.
Okay.
Whatever that is, but neither here nor there on that, but it's just a different way. Sometimes for us, it's not always straightforward. That's how I look at being side by side. And how to find somebody? That's a darn good question. I've had accountability buddies.
Okay.
Just on things like marriage, because they're married and I want to learn about it. Or just about my walk with Christ. How can I do a better job of things, so I have somebody accountable for my finances. Not just you, but I have accountability buddy that checks with me on every month.
That's good. That's good.
And I don't always tell them it's going great. But the thing is if you don't ask, it's somebody you got to trust. How do you find somebody? You got to be looking. Search it out. Maybe a coworker. Your best friend sometimes can be your confidant. I have a couple good friends that I could be very transparent with and talk to them about stuff when I'm struggling with something. And that's important. It's not necessarily that they could be your same age. It doesn't, like at this age of my life, my mentoring is more refined.
Okay.
Like I'm looking for specifics.
Mm-hmm.
Where generality is about growing up in life. Like you said, you went back to what could I do if I had somebody at age 18, what to do? I would say, okay, how do I help support my mom financially better than I did? How do I, save more than I did, than I have? Things like that. Just the character qualities of being the head of the household. Even when I got married, I didn't know all the character qualities of being the head of a household.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things. It's like, you can see I read it in a book, but if somebody doesn't give you the book, I didn't have that, and I'm not complaining. But the thing is that would be one of the things, is your finances, your character, and having somebody you could trust and be able to communicate with, to meet, whether they're your age or back then, it would have been better. Like I have people in the back of my mind back then. I think now they could have said something to me. They could have done, and it's not their fault. It's also the way the culture is. Our culture today is way different than the culture then, and we didn't have people like John Maxwell talking about stuff like that. Didn't. Actually, in the 70s, when my father passed, he was just learning how to be a pastor. Now he's a public speaker, motivator.
Yeah.
So that's the part. Is you got to find somebody with experience, and not be afraid to ask them. So realistically, you probably do want to ask somebody that's older than you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be 60 years older or 50 years older or 40 years older, but it's also, somebody you trust and that's somebody you really be able to glean from. Because what happens is, whether you're the mentor or the mentee, you're both going to learn.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You're always going to learn.
Being the mentor, I feel like you learn more.
Yes.
You learn way more about yourself when you're trying to teach someone else how to be successful. And even yesterday, I was apologizing to Gary because I overstepped and overreacted about the situation that's going on. I'm like, oh, you got to do this, or you got to do this, or we got to make this happen. But it's Gary's show. It's the Gary show, and I need to just watch and enjoy. Get my popcorn and enjoy the Gary show. So
and the part is, even when you or I've done it, I do it, is that whole composition of being neutral. Like, you can communicate ideas and preferences that might benefit that situation without telling them what to do. Like, it's different when you're 4 years old and you get to tell them. I can't tell a 4-year-old the same way I tell an 18-year-old.
Right. Yep.
It's different. The approach is not the same.
I keep thinking...
Although sometimes you fall into that same thing. Are you 4 at age 18?
Yeah. I keep thinking to myself, too, because, obviously the kids keep getting bigger. So
it's it's going to happen, yeah.
It gets to the, it's like, if it gets to the point where they're like, all right, I'm done with this, back and forth, you're coming with me kind of thing, pick them up. I'm like, this is going to suck when I can't just, pick them up and, take them up to the room and have a conversation and talk it through. But, so it'll be, I'll be calling you.
Yeah, but the thing is asking. I will tell you that just today, I had somebody ask me about mentoring them.
There you go. Boom.
I don't go around looking for that.
Mentorship.
I don't look, and I'm driving down the highway going. First, you feel honored, and that's good. It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's humbling, because he's only been able to watch me at this point. He doesn't know me.
We will now.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's going to know me now. Well, I mean...
Dave, you need to send this directly to him, right?
Right. No. The thing is we were at a retreat this weekend.
Okay.
And I shared my testimony about how I came to Christ and that was tough.
Okay.
And
so can you...
I mean, it's good. It's good, but...
Yeah. Let's do this because we still got to do, dive more into the family stuff, dive more into...
We are talking about family.
Correct. I'm saying, so we're going to kind of
Yeah.
But I want to wrap up that first point, and I think this is a good way to kind of bring it full circle and bring it to a close. There's like we, even in that other room, I asked you, this is probably a couple years ago, or not even, just what made you so religious? And you're like, I'm not religious. I have faith. There's a difference. And so
And there
like,
is,
and there
because-
is, so like, I guess that's where I think that, again, you it's very easy. You're talking about the secular world, the spiritual world. Like it's so easy to get lost in everyone's opinion of whatever faith is, religion is, God is. All, I mean, like, and two, to be clear, like, you never once ever had anything bad to say about anyone else, regardless of what they believe, regardless of who they were, where they're from. I mean, so like you've obviously you've kept your faith in your. It's like you've stayed in your Jesus Christ faith lane, but you never like. You never. It was like you were never putting people down or talking ill of anybody else that chose maybe that they had, a different way that they
Right.
found their faith and they found
it's their faith
God.
or their
So,
religion or their
correct.
actions.
Yeah.
One of the big things, if I can paraphrase the Apostle Paul, when he was in chains, literally in chains, arrested, he was, arrested by the Roman Empire at the time. And he was a Roman citizen. A lot of people don't even know that. There's freedom in what I do. There's
Okay.
liberty. That my actions, after I've given my life to Christ, are to be good character qualities and things like that. That I'm being refined every day. It's a process. But my actions don't get me closer to God, other
Okay.
than spending time with Him. And what I mean by actions is all the other world's faiths, if you want to call them religions or faiths or beliefs, all deal with them having to take action on their own to get to where they need to go. And that's one of the biggest differences between all the world religions and Christianity, and actually Judaism, where Jesus was a Jew, is it was a sacrifice of the lamb. He paid for my sins and rose again. Where all the other things are about what you do. Mine's about what I do. It's who I believe in. And that's the difference. And I have the liberty of understanding forgiveness because I've sinned. I've wronged your mother. Not, in, I wasn't a good husband. I was a faithful husband, but I just wasn't a good one. And it's hard to write that down. And I'm thankful as we're doing this that for the good of the whole of our family, that we get to do stuff together. And we've done it for many times, but now we've really ramped up
Yeah.
to what we do for our family.
Yeah.
Though we're separate.
There's a lot more Grandpa Gene time. There's a lot
Yes.
more dad time. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's important to me. But it's because of him. I give him the thanks for that. But when you're talking about going back to that, that's the key thing. I've already said it. But it's like that's faith. That's the difference between faith and works.
Mm-hmm.
Is I can have church in my backyard. I choose to go to another building to go with other people. But it doesn't change my relationship with Christ. Because it's an individual relationship first.
And you feel that, like, by using, like, and this is just what's coming to my mind, is like kind of having faith-based decision making or faith-based planning, faith-based vision. You're talking about, like, if you want to get into, like, nonprofits, for-profits, and career plans, business plans, life. It's just like, what's your vision? What's your mission statement? What are your core values? And there's a lot of different ways to say it, but like, I think that, like the faith, having faith in something greater than yourself allows you to also have faith in yourself. Would you say that has been something that you found as well?
Yes. Because, it's not done. Everything I do is not done. I've had to learn. Is not done from a selfish approach. It's done from a selfless approach, which is, in current terms, win-win. You want to win-win. You don't want to win-lose or lose-win.
Mm-hmm.
It's win-win. And that's being selfless.
I like it.
I benefit, I'm in sales. So
Mm-hmm.
if I sell you something, I benefit. But so do you. You get to have the product.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm selling you a good product, you're going to buy it again.
Mm-hmm. For those of you with lighting needs, call Dad. So, sorry.
But that's
Best in the biz.
that's
So-
that's the key thing. And now
Yeah.
like we've steered into family now.
Yeah. Well, so I think, and so thank you for this. I'm going to kind of just, because we're going to shift into that next gear here, but we will take a quick break and we'll come back. But I think that, no, this has been awesome. So thank you all. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. And obviously, this is something to where like some of the stuff I've heard before, some of the stuff I'm hearing for the first time. And, so thank you for being selfless, because this has been a nice selfish thing for me to do, is just kind of draw you out more and understand more. And a big part of even why I started doing these videos and I wrote my book and all that fun stuff was because and I think obviously like what you went through with I feel like losing Grandpa when you're 18, no, you never once, or nobody in my life ever said, James, listen, you better get to work. You better start getting things done. You better publish that book. You better do these videos because something might happen to you. And JJ, and again, I didn't even know who JJ was yet. I didn't even know who Julia was yet. But like, this is like one of my favorite things is that I want to be able to. I want my grandkids and great grandkids and anybody out there that can benefit from this stuff. I want it to be that. So like you've kind of, again, like having faith, but like kind of having that legacy mindset, like that is something that you've always, without even, it was like you never directly said it. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right.
Since we're wrapping up,
Let's wrap up.
all right. One of the things that I've spoken about establishing a legacy, being a legacy, and you got to start a legacy. So what I decided earlier today was to give you my first study Bible.
Ooh. And it's already highlighted so I can read all the important things.
It's all important.
It's all important. Okay. Yes, Professor Dad. It's all important.
I just have my favorites.
Okay. Well, thank you for this.
But I decided, and it was just like a spontaneous thing, and I was like, because every day's a gift.
Yeah.
And that's why they call it the present, and that's an actual quote by a person, although I can't remember who it is. The first person I heard it from was my boss.
There you go.
But he wasn't the originator.
That's all right.
But every day's a gift. That's why they call it the present.
All right.
The
Very
present.
good.
But so I want to give that to you now because when my father passed, one of the things I was doing with him was learning how to put plumbing fixtures back together on the bathtub. Was working on the plumbing back then, which is different than they are today. But that was one of the last things I got to do with my dad. And I didn't get to ask him a lot of questions like you're getting to ask right now. So I wanted to give you a lot of answers by handing you that right now.
Cool. So I'll know how to do plumbing in here.
No,
So, okay.
no.
All right.
But you know about all those.
I'll know how to use the plumb line.
You'll know how to use a plumb line, and you'll
line,
be able to
so-
look up those character qualities that I just talked about. So
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Pops.
thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for joining us, and be sure to come back, check out the next couple of conversations. If something spoke to you, feel free to message us, comment, like, subscribe, whatever it is that you social media cool people do. So till next time, stay burn proof.